The info is...
Information is power. Information is power. Tell the truth. Information is power. Information is power.
Okay, everybody. Yes. I appreciate everybody for being here. This is the Information Man of the Information Man Show. I'm going to do this podcast style like I do on my second channel, and make sure that you all go over there and check out my second channel. It's the Information Man Speaks podcast. Appreciate that. The link to that second channel is in the description of this video. And if you don't already know, you can also find some of my material on the podcast channel. You can find that material as well on these platforms. Check it out.
The Information Man podcast can be heard on 9 major platforms. On the second YouTube channel as well, Information Man Speaks podcast. Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Castbox, SoundCloud, and finally, Spreaker.
Okay, everybody, welcome. What I want to get into is some of the myths around marriage. Black women and black men getting married. On the YouTube and some of the panels that I've been on and some of the panels that you listen to week in and week out, there's always a debate about black marriage or mainly whether a man should get married, whether being married is a sign of simping. Loving a woman, is that a sign of you simping and being weak for the woman and putting the woman on a pedestal and putting her ahead of you? That can be debated either way. We know that many of us in the black community come from those of us who come from 2-parent households where you have a father and a mother that are married. There's something to say for the importance of black family. Black family is the foundation of where we're going as a people. That is the foundation. It has to come out of family and whatever that family structure is. Now, we know in these times, there are men who subscribe and believe in what they call the red pill, men that are red pill men who believe that a man should focus primarily on himself, developing himself, building himself up, developing himself spiritually, mentally, and physically, getting in the gym, working on a career, whether it be in business, being an entrepreneur, going to school, being the best you can be, being your best self, and not putting all your eggs in one basket with your love for just a woman. That women will be there regardless. But as a man, you should focus on self, be alpha, be strong mentally, don't succumb to things like marriage. There are some that say when you get married, that pretty much does marriage really benefit the woman more than it does the man, seeing that in every other marriage ends in a divorce. And in some cases, in general, women tend to win out with child support, alimony, so on and so forth. A man works hard all his life to develop his resources, and then he gives those resources to the woman when it comes to marriage. And in marriage, sometimes men, or most of the time, the way the divorce courts and the family courts operate, men don't do well in these situations unless you've got your shit set up. And I am going to be releasing a podcast related to the fact that men need to be on their P's and Q's. Men need to set themselves up as it relates to getting that 50-50 child support, that 50-50 custody of the child. I'm sorry. A little bit of a boo-boo there. Sorry about that. But a man should get 50-50 custody. A man should strike while the iron is hot and not only get 50-50 custody, but if you can, get full custody of your kids. I think prior to marriage, whether it be a prenuptial, there should be an agreement about how things are going to go down. And you got to make a decision if the woman does not want to marry you because you want certain contingency plans to be set in place, because people believe that marriage is about love. But let's be honest, marriage is a business. It's a contract. You're going into a business contract with someone, according to this country, especially when you sign a marriage certificate. You're letting the state interfere in your personal affairs because it's going to cost you a hell lot of money to get a divorce at the end of the day. So these are some of the detractions that keep some men from saying in the 21st century, you know what, I'm not getting married. It's not worth it. It's not an institution that's benefiting me. Some would say, what do men get out of marriage once you get past the fact that you can have children, and then there's the quote unquote regular sex that you can have with your spouse. Outside of that, what are the other intangible benefits? So I'm throwing these out to say these are some of the things that are out there. And I'm not here to criticize any man out there who makes such decisions. That you have to look at your lifestyle. What do you want? Where you want to go in your life and make the decisions that are best for you. So that's what I want to say about that. But with what I have just put on the table, I still want to say to everyone that there are myths about marriage between Black women and Black men. And I've heard many of this type of rhetoric and these kind of statements on the YouTube streets, whether it be on streams or, panels where people are saying certain things about Black women. What age do Black women usually get married versus Black women that are college educated versus white women, Black men, there's a lot of stereotypes. And I'm here to bring you some information that's going to put a lot of that stuff to rest, because I'm going to bring you some numbers. There's a couple of brothers, one from Morehouse and a brother from Howard University in Washington, D.C., who did a study. They looked at everything. They looked at the numbers, and you're going to be surprised by some of the things that I'm going to be espousing here.
Information is power.
This article that I have is about the top 4 myths about Black marriage. This comes from the Thought Code, C-O, Thought. It's an article where they break down those myths. Now, let me get into this right now. I want to appreciate everybody for being here. This is the Information Man Show. I have the 2 channels, as I said before. If you don't mind, go ahead and support what I'm trying to do if you like what I'm doing, and you know what to do.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, I definitely would appreciate that if you could do that. But let me get into this here. Now, the question is this, folks. Do Black people get married? That is the question that we've been asking. Some people say that Black people, we don't get married. You hear lots of times brothers and people say that Black women are the least married in this society. They tend to Black women are going to school, they're getting education, but Black men really don't care about how much education a woman has. It's more about how she treats him, how she carries herself, all those feminine intangibles that many brothers talk about out here in the YouTube and on many different platforms that are out there. But I'm here to tell you that there may be some differences in what we think and what is reality. The question has to be asked in one form or another in a series of news reports about black marriage. Now, where do we get our ideology as it relates to black marriage? Do we get it from television? Do we get it from our personal experiences, from family? Do we get it from the mass media? Mass media is one of the most powerful things because media, like music, can enter your self-conscious mind without your permission and culturally condition you to believe whatever they want you to believe based on what they put in mass media and television. OK, so we got to keep that in mind. OK, on the surface, such stories seem to be a concern about black women in search of love. But these media reports, as I said before, the media reports have largely served to few stereotypes. That's right, stereotypes. You know, like all black men have a bunch of children and we don't take care of our kids. Or maybe things like there are a lot of black women that are not married or marriage material, right? That black people don't believe in the institution of marriage, that we men in particular run around and have what they would call bastard children out of wedlock. Now, let me break down, because I've been hearing this whole thing about the term bastard and what have you. Let me break down a very clear definition of a bastard. How you define children that are really bastards is particularly if a man is already married and he has a legitimate family because he's married and he steps outside of his marriage and has children with another woman outside of that marriage. That too can be defined as those kids that man fathered outside of his current marriage where he has children that would be seen as the legitimate children because he's married to the woman. Those are the children that are legitimized under that marriage versus the children that he is having outside of his marriage through having an affair. Those children or that child would be seen as a bastard, an illegitimate child, because he had the child outside of the sanctity of marriage. He broke his vows and he had a child with a woman that he is not entangled with in a marriage contract. So that is one form of how you can define a child that is a bastard. That is one example of other examples of how you can deem children. And so that is a stereotype about black men, that we have bastard children all around town. Does it happen? Like any community, you have your bad and you have your good. It can happen, but it is not something that is just unique to black people. Other groups have these problems. But a lot of times you don't hear about other groups because other groups either keep their stuff very secret, or the mass media doesn't have sort of this sensational appetite and obsession with other cultures as they may do when it comes to black culture or black people in this society. And to be quite honest, sometimes as a people, we need to stop airing our dirty laundry out there in the media and keep things more tight knit. That's operating off of a code, as they would say. So let me get more into this. And this is about telling truth, as always.
Tell the truth.
And we've always got to do that. OK, so as I said, the stereotypes. Moreover, the suggestion that too fewer men are available to wed. News stories on black marriage have done little more than predicted doom and gloom for African American women who hope to get married. Okay, so I wanted to bring that out. Now, there is an analysis, a census data, and other figures has debunked. So there's studies out there, there's analysis and data that really can debunk this myth, or what is said seem to be is myth, that black women don't get married. That's one myth. Myth number one. Myth number two, that educated black women have it harder than non-educated black women when it comes to, or have it harder than the educated white women, or white women in general, or just than to find themselves in marriage. Okay, that's one. And I'm saying these are myths because once I get through this, you'll see why. That rich black men marry out. A lot of times on the YouTube streets and some of these panel discussions that we have people talking about how black men, when they become successful, like a Robert Smith Johnson, like Robert Smith, Brother Robert Smith, who gave money to the graduating class at Morehouse. Robert Smith, that brother is a billionaire. And the question is, he was once at one point in time married to a black woman, and currently he married a white woman. But the myth is that when black men become successful, they tend to marry outside their race. And a lot of that stereotypes and projection of that we think is reality through the mass media is because most of the men, when it comes to black men that are shown in the media to be with women outside their race, tend to be entertainers, singers, dancers, and athletes, basketball players, football players, so on and so forth. So you tend to see a lot of the athletes, the celebrities who get a lot of the shine on media. You see them with a woman who is non-black. And then that begins to create a cultural conditioning in your mind that most black men, when they become successful, are looking only to be with women outside of their race. And when I get finished with that, you'll see why. You may be surprised that could be, or it is a myth. And remember, there's a opinion and then there's truth. Like, we can all have our opinions about what we believe black marriage is, what we believe black men are doing in terms of relationships with women outside our race, or whether black men are marrying black women or black women are getting married. We can all have our opinions about that. And you have a right to your opinion, but you do not have the rights to your own facts. A lot of times we talk about these issues in an emotional manner, and sometimes we fail to look at the actual raw data, what has occurred in our society, given that black people are 13% of the population in this country, as we've been told. OK, that's as we've been told. None of us are, unless you are a statistician and you've been doing your own studies. These are things that we've been told. And usually we're getting information that reflects the worst of our culture and of our people. OK. But there is data out there to debunk much of the misinformation that has been floating around when it comes to black people in marriage rates. And a lot of this is coming from the media, and many of us have grown up listening to the media. So I'm going to get into this, and I have this article here. So I'm going to reference this article, give some of my personal opinions from my experience. Right. And experience is great. I mean, I think a lot of us, when we're on YouTube or any social medias and we're on panels, we're giving a lot of our own personal anecdotal background information, things that we've gone through. I certainly do this. However, we got to keep in mind that the world is a lot bigger than the world that we actually live in. We don't know every black man and every black woman in the world or in this country to know what's happening in everyone's bedrooms, everyone's household, everyone's mind. I am no Negrodamus whatsoever, and no one is, but with studies and analysis and data, it can give you a better overview and insight into what's really going on in the black community as it relates to this whole issue around marriage with black women and black men. But let me go right here. One of the myths is that black women don't marry. OK, now let me go into it here. Excuse me. The news, the barrage of news out there reports that about black marriage rates, given the impression that African American women chances of walking down the aisle are bleak. They're not going to happen. You hear me? Bleak. It's not going to happen. There was a Yale University study found that this is in a Yale University study. The Yale University study found that just 42% of black women are married. And a variety of high-profile news networks such as CNN and ABC, those alphabet channels that I don't like, picked the figures up and ran with it. So for those of you who have been saying that only 42% of black women are actually getting married, you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, because that may not be completely the truth as we may been thought to believe it's true, because there's other figures to debunk that out there. Now, these high profile news networks, such as CNN, as I said before, and ABC, they pick these figures and they run with it. But research, the IVA Tilson of Howard University. So there's a research called the IVA Tilson of Howard University, and there's a brother named Brian Marks of Morehouse College, questioned the accuracy of the findings that only 42% of black women are getting married. Okay, this is something that we have to examine. We have to look at. They question this accuracy. Often cited figures of 42% of black women never marry includes all black women age 18 and older. Tilson told TheRoot.com, this brother told TheRoot.com, that this age in an analysis eliminates age gaps. Let me say this again. Tilson told TheRoot.com that raising the age in the analysis in the study that they did eliminates the age gaps we don't really expect to be married and gives a more accurate estimate of true marriage rates. Tilson and Mark found that, you ready for this, folks? These two brothers in their studies, they found one brother from Morehouse College, the Morehouse, and one brother from Howard University in Washington, D.C. They found that 75% of black women never marry, including all black. Oh, I have this wrong. Let me correct that. Let me correct what I'm saying here. A little bit of a boo-boo. Let me correct that. It's still 75%. Tilson and Mark found that 75% of black women marry before they turn age 35. Can you dig what I'm saying?
Tell the truth.
So this is the deal. It's 75% of black women in this country actually are getting married before they turn age 35. This whole 42% of black women not getting married is a false narrative that's been painted, as I said, by the ABCs, the CNNs, the fake mayonnaise news that is not giving us true projections of where African-American male and female marriage really is going. Now, this is the thing. If 75% of black women are getting married before age 35 or around age 35, and a majority of these and they are marrying black men, then that would put to rest that black men don't marry black women. It goes both ways. And that would also put to rest that black men are just lusting after women of other races because there are more black men married actually than black women. But this would even that all out, because a lot of these women are marrying, out of this percentage that I just gave you, are marrying black men. So this whole myth that black men don't marry black women, that we just lust after women outside of our race, is not necessarily completely accurate. Okay. Just got to tell the truth sometimes, because truth will definitely
Tell the truth.
Truth will set you free. And information is always power.
Information is power.
So 75% of black women marry before they turn age 35 after examining census data from 2005 to 2009. Moreover, black women in small towns have higher marriage rates than white women in urban centers such as New York and Los Angeles, California. Tilson remarked this in a New York Times article, stating this as the reality. So even black women who are getting married at higher rates than even white women in urban centers like New York. Why this is very important? Because places like New York and Los Angeles have dense population, higher population. So therefore, you would figure that you have lots to pick from in terms of finding a mate.
Information is power.
Another myth, should I say. Educated black women have a harder time when it comes to marriage or finding a companion. Let's get into that based on Tilson and Mark Bryan's study here, the numbers. Let's look at the numbers. Let's see what it means. Let's not be bashful. Let's always tell the truth.
Tell the truth.
Getting a college degree. Okay, now I'm going to tell you, we know that more black women are in college than black men. They're getting the education. And we hear brothers a lot say that, you know, black women will let you know, hey, I'm educated. I got an education. I got a master's degree. I got a PhD, what have you. Let's just keep it real. As men, we don't really care how many degrees a woman really has. Now, I do like personally a woman who has education, who's educational in that sense, because I want to be able to have a conversation outside of just a simple, typical conversation, silliness, right? You want to be able to talk about anything, science, history, health, just about anything, right? With a woman, when you looking for an educated woman, besides bags, this is how many bags I have, this is social media. I don't really want to be with a woman that only talks about social media and handbags and makeup and all this sort of stuff that doesn't really matter to me as a man. I'll just shut that right out of my ear. Okay. But I think this is something that women have to understand, that most men, there's certain tangibles that we're looking for. We're looking at, how do you carry yourself? Are you feminine? How do you talk to us? How do you treat us? How do you, your just how you move as a woman, your energy, okay, that you give off. We're looking for that. We're not always impressed by just how many degrees you have. And sometimes you have some women who will let you know how much education they have, is if sometimes that's going to impress us. But men are very simple. Okay. We're very simple. We react to how you treat us, how you make us feel. And then we also look at how you carry yourself. Are you attractive? Are you well kept, well groomed, well fit, may I say? And I always look at what a woman eats, what she puts in her body. Does she talk about health? Is she able to talk to me about nutrition and a proper diet and all of that? If a woman isn't into nutrition and what she puts in her body, that tells me everything you need to know. So men, women, we're all looking for different things and some similar things. But this is something I think that women should understand when they rattle off their credentials as it relates to how much education that they have. I think that's very important, not to minimize the importance of education that women have, but men it doesn't always rock our boat like that. There's other tangibles that we're looking for from women in that particular area. So let me continue on with the article and where I'm going with the presentation here. Getting a college degree is the worst thing that a black woman can do if she wants to get married. Now, that's a stereotype. That's a myth, right? So right or not exactly. It's not exactly true. Now, news stories about black marriage often mention that more black women pursue higher education than black men by 2-to-1. Ratio. Okay, that's the ratio that they're saying. By some estimate, okay, here comes the estimate. But what these pieces leave out, what these sort of anecdotes, these thoughts that we have leave out, is that white women, black women's counterpart, white women also earn college degrees more than white men. So white women are earning more college degrees than even white men, as black women are earning more college degrees than black men. And a lot of us, we've been thinking that it's just a black man and black woman thing, when you've got the same thing going on within the white community, where white women are out degreeing white men. Okay. And however, you can say out there that, well, even though white women are getting more degrees than their white male counterparts, white men still are running things in this society. The white woman is still dependent on getting her job and employment opportunities from that white man. Now, you can bring that in. That's a strong inference, a strong point that I'm bringing up. You can, and then you can flip that and say, are black men employing black women at the same rates that white men are employing white women, even though white women statistically are earning more degrees than white men? That's a good subject. That's a good topic for another show. But those are some of the things that I'm pretty sure that people looking at this video would probably ponder to themselves and say, hey, Info Man, you got to touch on that issue too. That's a reality. Okay. So white men, they earn more degrees than their white counterparts. That's white women and black women the same as it relates to black men. And the gender imbalance has hurt white women chances at matrimony. So they're basically saying that white women, when they're educated and they have degrees, that it's actually hurting. Let me get some water here. A little bit of a music break.
Information is power.
All right, we're back. Back to the Information Man Show. Thank you for being here. Don't forget to subscribe to the program.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
I had something in my throat there, folks. Good thing I got a little bit of a beverage here. Just some good old H2O water. But I want to thank everybody for being here and supporting the program. Let me continue on with where this article is going. So it's saying basically white women are also being impacted by their degree, their educational background as it relates to marriage as well. I never would have known that this was a reality. And a lot of times we say that white women that are getting married more than black women. But according to the study that these brothers were able to look at, with 75% of black women actually getting married before the age or around the age of 35, they're actually getting married more than white women in urban environments, and white women who have education are having some similar problems. Now, one can make an inference that this isn't about race, then this may be just the fact that men across the board in our society today do not want to get married. Men out there feel that it's not a good deal for men. OK, of course, you've got the MGTOW, which is men going their own way, which you have quite a few white men that are into that narrative. You've got black men and many men that are subscribing to the red pill philosophy, that you can't make women your dreams, your master. You have to be the master of your own fate and captain of your own soul. And you have to look at the world for what it is and not what you want it to be. and this whole thing about getting married and living happy ever after, and that we're going to be forever get together, it isn't always true. And I'm an example of that. I was married 15 years. And it didn't last forever. It lasted for 15 years. Had a beautiful daughter out of the marriage. I didn't have any drama in my marriage. I like some guys go through when they get divorced. But the fact of the matter is, when you get married, you think this is it forever, and sometimes it doesn't work out the way you might have planned it to work out, the way you hoped that it would be. And these are just more realities that we're going to have to deal with as men going forward. And this is reality for us all as people to look at. Let me just say here too, around this whole issue about education and black women having it harder as it relates to marriage. What's more, according to the article here, what's more, black women who finish college actually improve their chances of marrying rather than lowering them. Then I want to get into that. Black women, let me say this again. Black women actually increase their chances of marriage more than they do when they're not as educated. Okay. And let me just say this. This is, I've heard people say this, that family is the foundation. You can't get anywhere without family. You have to make family a very important foundation of our culture. Okay. And there are some that make the argument that some of your most successful black people in this society are black people that are married, meaning a man married to a black woman married to a black man. And some of your most successful black men in terms of their power and wealth are married and are married. OK. And some of them are married to black women. Let's get out of this whole thing about the athletes, because the athletes only make up a small percentage of what's really happening in the black community in terms of marriage and black men marrying out of their race. But there are quite a few black men that are marrying within their race, that are scientists, that are artists, that are teachers, that are engineers, you name it, run the gamut. OK, computer engineers, have their own business, entrepreneurs. They're out there, and black women, according to the study here and the numbers that these brothers came up with out of that 75% of black women are actually getting married before age 35, or let me just say around age 35 is the cutoff point. Out of that, these are black women that will fill out the area around black women that have education. OK, it certainly is a key point. It is a key point in my presentation here. Now, I'm not saying this to say that, oh, OK, everybody go out and get married. Marriage is not for everybody. It's kind of crazy how you need a driver's license to get married. You need all kind of licenses and you got to take exams. But we live in a society where they don't make us take any hard exams before we get married. And we live in a society where they don't make it mandatory that there's a prenuptial or some kind of agreement in case things go bad. I personally think that they should make it a requirement that before you get married, there needs to be certain things agreed to. OK, and if you don't want to do that, there ain't going to be no marriage, because the state's not going to marry you, or no preacher can marry you. Now, that's hardcore. That would be a hardcore requirement. But that's what's going on here, everybody out there, that black women, the more educated they are, the more likely they are to have the opportunity or the chances at marriage. Okay. So that's according to this article I'm reading here, The 4 Myths of Black Marriage, the Thought Core article. The Thought Core article. Let me go ahead before I go in to, I was going to take a break, but I'm going to go into the next set of this. Let me just take a small break. I'll be right back, folks. I appreciate you being here. Make sure you check these platforms where you can hear me on my podcast as well.
The Information Man podcast can be heard on 9 major platforms. On the second YouTube channel as well, Information Man Speaks Podcast. Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Castbox, SoundCloud, and finally, Spreaker.
Information is power.
Okay, everybody, this is the Information Man of the Information Man Show. Thank you for being here and supporting the channel. Make sure you go ahead and you know what to do.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
Definitely would appreciate that. Thank you for being here. I'm going to get more into this area about black marriage and the myths that are around it. I hope you've been following some of the details of what I've put out there. Make sure you share this video through your social media with other people. Relook at the video again if you really want to catch on what I'm saying here. See, we got to take emotions out of this whole issue around black marriage. We got to really look at the numbers. We got to look at really what's happening in society. And we have to examine where we're getting our thoughts about black people in marriage. Is it coming from television, mass media? Where is it coming from? And we know that media is very powerful. Media is the only thing that can enter your self-conscious mind. Media can control. And there's an old saying. Let me just say this. When I was in college, I had a professor that said that media can control the mind. He who controls media controls the mind. And this is where we get a lot of our belief systems, our cultural belief systems, through this pop culture that we live in, this media culture that we live in. And I want to say this again, this infotainment that we live in today. And we got it on social media too, YouTube as well, infotainment. But let me continue to get into this. And this is an area around black women. Among black women, 70% of college graduates are married by 40 years old. Okay, that's what I'm saying to you. Okay, among black women that are college graduates, by age 40, a good majority of them are married. So we're talking about black women that are college graduates in particular. And by the time they are 40 years old in particular, a lot of them tend to be married in some cases, maybe not all, but in some cases. And as I said before, 75% of black women marry before they turn age 35 or somewhere within that range. Okay. And that's just black women just in general, educated, college educated or not, right? Just overall in general, right? But if you are a college educated black woman, you know, PhD, a master's degree, the whole nine yard, 70% of college graduate black women are married by age 40. Okay. Whereas only about 60% of black high school graduates are married by that age. So this makes a case for the fact that black women who have a college education tend to be more often to be married going into age 40 than, okay, that's 70%, whereas 60% of black women who have just maybe a high school education are married by that age. Okay, so let me just say that I'm gonna read this off again. Among black women, 70% of college graduates are married by 40, while only about 60% of black high school graduates are married by that age. So just to make sure I'm getting my facts right. So black women who are high school graduates but not college graduates, at 60% of that 70% still end up married, in comparison to college educated black women who are at age 40 are married around age 40 at 70%. So there's a slight dip off, just a slight one between college education and high school education. I just had to repeat that to make sure I was saying that correct. I didn't want to say something that was incorrect. The same plays out with black men. Okay, black men that are college educated and have themselves together in the same sense. Black men, same thing, are getting married. Let me just break this down to you as it relates to black men. The same trend is at play for black men as it is for black women that are educated. Okay, black men in 2008, 76% of black men with a college degree married by age 40. Okay, that is truth. That is truthful.
Tell the truth.
This once again puts to rest this whole notion that black men don't get married and that we just we use women and we're not willing to commit. Okay, now once again I'm going to say I know there's brothers out there, there's men out there who are red pill, MGTOW, they don't believe in marriage. To each his own. I'm just telling you this is all about men that are married, for good or for bad, because we do know that there are some downfalls when it comes to divorce. But the reality is black men at 76%, that's more than black women, are getting married, okay, by age 40 at 76% compared to black women at 70% and black women with no college education at 60%. So this whole thing that men are not willing to settle down and get married is a false narrative that we got to get away from. Okay. Now, in contrast to the educated, so-called educated black man, 63% of black men with just a high school diploma, which is still higher than black women with no college degree, but just a high school degree at 60%, but 63% for black men, 63% of black men with just a high school diploma, okay, tied the knot, meaning they get married. Okay, so education increases the likelihood. Listen to me. Education increases the likelihood. Education increases the likelihood of marriage for both African American men, and African American women, believe it or not. This is class today. Get your butt in class and hear what I'm saying. This is no laughing matter. Okay, so this is powerful stuff. So now Tilson points out, this is a brother from Howard University who did the study. He points out that black women with college degrees are more likely to marry than white females with just high school that are high school dropout. So if white women are high school dropout, they're least likely to marry compared to black women who have a college education. Now, Rich, let's get into this other area. This is another myth, okay? The myth of rich black men marry out. For those of you who keep saying that black men, they don't marry women of their own race, they marry women of outside their race, not true. It's not true. Certainly there are black men out there who do marry women outside their race, but to make an indictment that all black men are just thirsty to be with women of other races is not necessarily a factual statement at all. And that's what I'm saying. When we get on panels and we get in the YouTube world of live streaming and panels, people get emotional and they're talking based on their personal experiences that they had with someone rather than knowing what the data and the numbers are for black people across the board. Now, with black men, drop black women as soon as they reach a certain level of success, don't they? So the notion is that as soon as black men get rich, black men get successful, black men have nice things, a car, a house, have themselves together, black women are going to say, oh my God, he's going to be with a white woman. I used to hear this a lot as a kid in the beauty shots where black women would get very upset when they would see a black athlete or a black man or a black entertainer with a white woman, because they would say, hey, he's giving all that success and money and all those sort of things to the white woman. So they're thinking about the question is, do they necessarily care about black men being with women of other races? Or do black women, are they only concerned about the resources that black men are giving or may give to another race of women that they may marry if a black man marries outside their race? That's a very powerful question. I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just bringing up this as a question that you have to answer for yourself, and give me some comments in the comment section of this video when I'm finished with this, because this is very powerful stuff, very good information.
Information is power.
And we need to examine this, folks. We definitely need to examine this. So black men, that's the thought, that black men are going to marry out when they get successful. Well, that's a myth that we've been culturally conditioned to believe by listening to this dummy media and this dummy box called television. OK, while plenty of rap stars and athletes and musicians may choose to date outside of their date interracially and outside their race, as I said, when they achieve fame. OK, same is not true for the bulk of successful black men. By analyzing the census data, Tilson and Brian Marks from Morehouse University in Atlanta, Georgia, and my brother Tilson from Howard University, who studied the census data, found that 83% of married black men who earned at least $100,000 annually got hitched and married and jumped the damn broom with, guess what? Here it comes. Here comes the thunder. Yes, 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 yes. Woo! They got hitched and married and jumped the broom with black women. 83% of black men outside of these athletes, these musicians and these dancers and entertainer narrative that you get from the dummy box called television, when you look at just the everyday working black man, college educated black man who's not a celebrity per se, at 83%, they are marrying women of their own race, black women. So stop getting on platforms. Stop getting on these platforms on YouTube or anywhere else saying that black men always run to the outside of the race. There are some that do that, but the ones that are doing that, they are a small percentage, a dip in they're like finding when you eat Raisin Bran cereal, you get the little, they're like a needle in a haystack is what I want to use. That's the right analogy. It's a needle in a haystack, but 83% of black men are marrying black women when they are successful. And we're talking about black men that are earning $100,000 or more. So this whole thing that all black men, when they become successful, give their money and fortune to women that are outside their race and they're dating interracially is not true. We need to stop talking about it. We need to stop saying that and making these false narratives that are not true. This is the Information Man.
Information is power.
This is the Information Man, and I'm here to give you that damn information. Now, the same is the same case for educated black men of all incomes. Here we go. So even black men of all incomes, even if they're not making 100,000, according to the census data that these brothers were able to put together, able to study and find out that the same case for educated black men of all incomes. 85% of black male college graduates marry black women. I'm gonna say it again. 85% of black college graduate black men are marrying black women. So when brother Smith gave that money to the graduating class of black men at Morehouse, it's a good majority of those black men are going to marry, if not all, are going to end up marrying black women if they choose to get married. Because like I said, there is a dip in marriage because a lot of the younger generation, the millennials, are not buying into marriage. They don't see the benefit of it. and they see what the older generation has gone through, and they don't want no parts of it. But it doesn't mean that marriage is not happening. But when black men do decide that they do want to get married, no matter how you look at it as, oh, they're simps or I don't want to get married, that's not the point. The point is that when black men get married, they're marrying black women. And even when they've got money, at 83%, they're marrying black women. At 85%, all across incomes, they're marrying black women. So let's put to rest that BS and stop putting that narrative out there of lies that you get from the media. Now, we can't keep going with these narratives, as I said. 83% of black men who are college educated are getting married to black women. And of course, you have 85% of black men who have various income levels but have college education are also doing the same thing. I can't emphasize that anymore. And let me also add to this by saying to you, overall, here's a general number. Now, 88% of married black men, no matter their income or educational background, have black wives. Did you hear what I just said? So black men.
Tell the truth.
Black men who have at 88% across the board, who have no college education, when they do get married, they are marrying black women. Now, this puts to rest that other myth that every child that's being born is a child, this interracial thing, that there are more kids being born of interracial marriages because black men are seeking to marry outside of their race. That would put to rest that myth that there are so many more interracial children being born. If 88% of black men who have no college education when they get married are married to black women, if 83% of college educated black men who are making over 100,000 or more, 100,000, and black men of various incomes who have college education are marrying black women at 85%, that puts to rest in this notion that black men are marrying outside their race and producing children that will be deemed as biracial children. This whole notion that you hear sometimes on panels on YouTube about this issue, this would put that to rest as not being completely the truth. Okay, we have to deal in truth and not
Tell
myths.
the truth.
Okay, now this means also for black women that interracial marriage should not be held responsible for the singlest black women, meaning black women that are single. You can say with your opinion from your individual experience that that's why you're not getting black men that you covet, that you want, because they're marrying interracially. But you can't make that blanket statement for all of black men across the land, because you only have your individual situation that you can bring up, but you don't have the overall census data that Tilson and Brian Marks brought up in their study. Both brothers, one being from Morehouse and the other from Howard University. They looked at census data to come to the conclusions around black marriage and black men, who they're marrying, who they're not marrying, based on income, education, what have you. So we gotta get past these stereotypes that we have about one another. We got to be bigger than that, because this whole notion, I've been hearing this whole notion that black men don't marry black women, that we're chasing after women of other races. Yes, there's some black men out there that are doing that type of stuff. Sure. But they don't represent the whole of black men who are actually marrying black women. So this argument that black children are being born less because black men are having not necessarily true. Are there interracial relationships? Are there black men with other women of other races having children? Yes, but it's not to the high tone that we've been led to believe. These brothers looked at the census data, and it's not completely true. As I said, generally 88% of marriage, black men, no matter their economic income or educational background, when they do get married, they marry black women, black wives. And this is a very important thing to recognize too. And as I said earlier in this program, I recognize that there are some black men out there who don't believe in marriage, that are red pill, that are MGTOW. I do recognize the fact that marriage has dipped in our society because some men have decided that it's just not for them. They don't see the benefits, the long-term benefits of it, because they see, once, as I said before, that divorce is very high and that you're going to lose all your resources that you worked hard for, and the woman's going to get everything. That's some of the thoughts that people have. And I'm just going to let everybody know I'm going to have a podcast video that I did where I actually was on a channel talking about the issue of how you prepare yourself if you get a divorce. How do you prepare yourself really prior to getting married to protect your assets as a man? Things that you should do. You should get full custody of your kids, if not 50-50. You should get a prenuptial agreement. You should decide where certain properties are going. There are certain things that you have to do if you are going to venture into getting married. Okay. You just need to do this and prepare yourself. You know, I think in American society, we need to have some sort of mechanism or some sort of, they should make it a priority that people need to have these pre-preparations before marriage, in my opinion, as I've said. So let me go into the other area. Here's another myth out there for y'all to chew on. Black men don't earn as much money as black women. That is not true.
Tell the truth.
Actually, black men overall are earning more money than black women, even if they have even if they're not a college educated. This is how it works. Let me break it down according to the article here in the study. Just because black women are more likely to graduate from college than black men, their black male counterparts, doesn't mean that they are out-earn black men. Annually, black men are more likely than black women to bring home at least $75,000. Again, 75,000 black men are bringing home the bacon, bringing home the money more so than black women annually. Plus, this is important. When you double that number, and you've got black men that are bringing home $250,000 annually more than black women when they have education or earning power. Okay. So actually black men are still making higher earning power than black women because of the previous gender gaps that still exist in our society. Income, black men remain the breadwinners overall within the black community in African-American communities. And I'm going to tell you why. Simply this. We know that black people, black men and black women in general, in some cases are earning less money than their white counterparts. That is a fact of life in our society today. However, within the black community, between black men and black women, it is actually the black man that is earning more money annually, between $75,000 annually and $250,000 annually than black women. That is a fact. Look at the data, look at the census numbers on this. So this myth that we push out that black women, because they're going to college and getting more education than black men, that somehow that means that they're earning more money. Not necessarily true. And let me go on with this article, what this article is saying, because as previously before, there's a gender gap and black men still earn more money than women annually. Okay, so this whole thing about, black women, and don't get me wrong, there are black women out there that earn more money than black men, but overall, black men are still out earning black women due to gender gap issues in the society that we live in. So this is very important. This is very much good information.
Information is power.
It's good information. It's powerful information, but it's truthful.
Tell the truth.
A lot of times we're spending time on these panels on YouTube and other social medias, and we're going with our feelings and our emotions about things, as I said before, and it doesn't add up to what the data and the numbers really show. So we've got to stop going around with these myths about what black women and black men as it relates to marriage, relationships. We got to get away from these narratives. They don't paint the true picture, because we're getting a lot of our narratives from, I would have to say, white social media, ABC, CNN, these type of media outlets are pushing out and they're defining our image. And as I said before, when I was in college, he who controls media controls the mind, and the body will move, okay, with that. When you put in a person's mind certain thoughts, it's cultural conditioning, undervalue, underestimating, and marginalized. We do it to ourselves, black people, and the society does it to us in terms of what it is to be married when you are African American, black in this society. Now, this is another important point to be made. These numbers that I brought up, these numbers that are indicated in the study, that there are more than enough financially successful black men to go around for black women. And this is a tough pill to swallow, but I've heard black women say there ain't enough good black men because black men are either in jail, or maybe we are living an alternative lifestyle, or maybe we're busted. We're busted, crusty, and musty, as my man O'Shea Duke Jackson was saying. Shout out to him. And we don't have any money. We have no direction. We got our pants below our behind, like we got a bowel movement. That's not true. That's another false narrative. Of course, not every black woman is looking to be married. Not every black woman is looking for a breadwinner. Not every black woman is wants marriage, and not every black woman is not unhappy at being single. There are some black women that certainly want to be single, certainly are happy in their status, but there are black women out there that are not happy. And the truth of the matter is that there are lots of black men out there who have themselves together. I think what we have to look at is why some black women are not being chosen. It could be a variety of different things. And a lot of these things are on a superficial level. It could be that you just are not that sexually or physically appealing to black men of this ilk. Possibly. I'm not trying to indict anyone. Or maybe there's something that you don't give off that black man is attracted to. OK, and it's not just about black men wanting to go outside their race for women of other races, because I've made that argument with numbers and data from the census. That is not true. Black men are, once again, marrying black women. So the question is, why are some black women not being picked up? Now, unfortunately, some people may not want to hear this, but there are just some black women who don't meet the test. We're basically on a superficial level. We're human. We're trying to what we look at, what we see with our eyes. Maybe the woman is overweight. Maybe she doesn't fit what the man's type is. Women for decades have certainly have their type. Some women like men that are muscular, tall, skinny, big, thick, or whatever you call it, husky kind of guys, very tall guys, whatever, guys with money. Women have had their right to choose what they want. Men at the same time, we have our right to choose what we want to when it comes to black women. So there's a variety of variables as to why there are some black women who have the education, the money, the whole 9 yards, why they're not getting chosen. And I hate to say this, but on a superficial level, men are visual. And so we tend to gravitate towards what we are attracted to. And if a woman doesn't fit a certain look or whatever we're looking for, or along with how she's treating us, she could remain single. And not only with looks, if a woman who's very, very attractive and has herself together across the board, she could be a turnoff to a man because she has a bad attitude. I know personally, when a woman, no matter how attractive she is, if she has a bad attitude and she doesn't make me feel comfortable around her because she has a really bad attitude, then I'm not going to be attracted to her or want to deal with her any longer, no matter how aesthetically pleasing she may look to the eye. So that's another thing that you got to look at. Attitude, the way you carry yourself, the way you deal with men. Men are looking at that. And I think women need to examine that. And that could play some role into why some women are not getting married, amongst other variables out there, depending on where you live, what's the black population, depending on the kind of men that are available. Are you living in an area where you don't have men of many means, or what? It's a variety of different things. And keep this in mind. I know that this is true in terms of black men definitely being eligible financially and all those other things, because we know there was an article which should have been pushed out there in the media a lot heavier. There are 2.5 million black men that have moved into the upper echelon of the middle class. And it's funny how you don't see that in the mass media, because mass media does not want to portray and project the successful black men on all levels of income and education. They don't want to do that. They want to paint the narrative that we're all got our pants sagging, that we're all rappers and entertainers and all this other nonsense. There are black men that are doing great things, black men that are engineers, teachers, black men that are scientists, black men that are entrepreneurs, that are doing great things in business. So we have to look at that too and examine how we really see black men in this society and black people in general. And this is where we're getting a lot of our narratives. Let me go on and say this, that this is the numbers indicate that there are more than enough financially successful black men for black women. So, and I know there are going to be some black women that are going to watch this video and they're going to disagree with that and say that they're not. But keep in mind, I'm going to say this again. If you're going by your own individual experiences where you live at, then you are entitled to your opinion based on what you experience, but you're not entitled to your own facts, because you don't know every man across the board, just like men don't know every woman across the board in this society to put these stereotypes out about each other. We only know based on what we've been exposed to. But you have to also ask yourself, too, if you are meeting the wrong type of man or the wrong type of woman, you have to ask yourself, look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I doing to attract these type of people? A lot of times we want to blame our issues and our interpersonal experiences on other people instead of looking at ourselves in the mirror and saying, why am I attracting these type of people in my life? What is it that I'm doing? Who am I surrounding myself with? Where am I going to meet people? There's a variety of things, reason why you could be meeting the wrong type of women. When you look at these professional athletes and they marry these women that are very aesthetically pleasing to the eye, but these women give them the blues because a lot of times these guys are meeting these women in nightclubs or meeting women who really don't have themselves together, but they got the looks. And these guys are marrying these women and getting them pregnant. And then when things go wrong, they're like, oh, my God, they go to the barbershop and they say, oh, my God, I know they were going to be like this, because you got to be a responder, not a reactor. You got to assess the people, the women that you have in your life. You just don't run to any pretty face. You got to make a better assessment. And women have to do the same thing when it comes to men. Don't wait until you get older to now want to chase after the man who's got himself together that you weren't checking for when you were younger, because he was maybe nerdy, goofy, or he was focused on education, because these men grow up to become captains of industry. These men grow up to be doing great things. And sometimes the nerdy guys can grow up and they can become very charming and very good looking, and you're going to sleep on them. So you got to learn to assess, does this man have husband qualities, father qualities? You got to look at that. You got to get out of the physical all the time. Physical is very pleasing to the eye, but you have to also look at the other tangibles. So with that said, this is the Information Man. I hope you enjoyed
Information is power.
the Information Man show. I'm kind of bringing it to you here, and I hope that a lot of the things that I brought up made some sense to you. Definitely check out my show.
You are listening to Information Man. Please make sure to subscribe to his channel.
And you know, I got the podcast channels.
The Information Man podcast can be heard on 9 major platforms. On the second YouTube channel as well, Information Man Speaks Podcast. Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean.
That's right.
Castbox.
That's right.
SoundCloud, and finally, Spreaker.
Woo! Yes. Everybody, thank you. Once again, you can find this if you want to look this up and read it for yourself. It's the top 4 myths about black marriage. Check that out on the web, on the Google that, read it for yourself. But like I said, we got to get out of our emotions and look at the numbers, the census data that displays who's getting married, the whole 9 yard, by, race and economics and what have you. Black men are marrying black women. We got to get out of these stereotypes, and we got to stop stereotyping ourselves when we talk about these issues. I hope that you got something out of my presentation. I appreciate it. And with that said, this is the Information Man, and I'm about to be out of here. Make sure you check me out. Check out the Information Man Speaks podcast channel as well. I thank you all out there.
Information is power.
Information Man Show.
Go shawty, get it shawty, you love the party.
Tell the truth.
Tell the truth. Information Man Show. It's the Information Man Show.
Information is power.
That's right. Information Man Show. You're listening to the Information Man Show. Yes. Peace to everybody out there. Thank you for listening to my show, the Information Man Show. Yes. Yes.
Information is power.
Is power. Information Man Show is power. Is power. 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 Keep back. Thank you, everybody, for your support. I'll be back with more presentations. Thank you. Yes. Yes. This is the Information Man Show. That's right. Pest.
Information
Power.
is power.
Information Man Show. Come all and listen to this knowledge. I'm breaking it down, I'm giving it to you, wrapping it round with knowledge. Black marriage does exist. It does exist. Peace to you. Peace.
Information is power.
All right now.